Guys, I'm so thrilled to be back with you for this episode of darning, which is just visible mending. And it's so crazy because these techniques have been around forever, but got really lost in the fast fashion kind of craze because when you got a hole in something or it got ruined, you just threw it away or gave it away or donated it and got new things because things became less expensive. But really, this is such a beautiful art of visible mending, and it gets really intricate and you can become a serious perfectionist at it. But today we're gonna learn kind of the messy way that both adds a lot of character to your clothes and also plays on the fact that you probably don't have the concentration and dedication to devote your life to visible mending at this point in time. Or at least I don't. Whenever we get a hole in our clothing, by the way, shout out to Maya, my friend Maya, who gave this shirt to my other friend who I stole it from. But my cat clawed a hole in my shirt the other day. And there's a couple ways that we can go about this. I'm going to show you how to create a weave. And this weaving technique is really applicable to a lot of other projects. But another way is what I did with these little socks that I turned into hand warmers a few years ago, is just creating that loop stitch that we just did, but around the hole, so just creating an integrity. And it took a few passes around this to create such a consistent mend. Like we did before, you just pop up onto the fabric about a pinky nail length in, and then you wrap it around. And because there's no other fabric that you're mending it to, you don't pop it into the fabric, you really just loop it around and keep popping up onto the sock. And so I just think that this is a great way to create an awesome integrity for holes. But today we're gonna patch work, and I chose 3 colors, and depending on how big the hole is, I mean, you could do it with 1 color, which will create kind of this like monochrome weave, which still looks cool, but I like the messiness of the weave. And so I'm starting with these colors, and I just chose a pale yellow, a pale blue, and then another pale blue, so that they all are kind of in this similar scheme. And because the shirt is just beige and black, I could really go with any color scheme that I want. So for me, I'm gonna take the yellow, and what I'm gonna do is create a weave, a weft, with the string that I just cut. Pulling out the same size needle that I've been using, and we load up the string, pop that bad boy through, and she is locked and ready. We are going to use this today because it's going to make it easier. But if you have really strong fabric, you actually don't need to use this. So I'm going to take the piece with no thing, this one, put it inside, and then I take the top piece and I smush it on top. Oh, maybe unscrew it a little bit to make sure that it's loose enough to fit over your fabric, and then you tighten it up, and that way it's kind of holding your hole so that you can, you know, get to it. So I'm going to take my string and I'm going to pop it up outside the hole, and then I'm going to do my weaving over under, just embroidery straight stitch down, and I'm going to start creating a grid. And you know, you want to keep the stitches about the same size and kind of small. And then I'm going to just move over one and then create the grid again. And what I'm doing right now is just setting up some backbone integrity for my weave. And then so when I get to the top, I want to come up here and move over 1. So I go sideways 1. And then once I start getting over the hole, I'll do kind of the same thing, but because there's no fabric here, there's nothing to go over and under, so I'm just creating like a straight up and down line. And then, you know, weaving a little bit into the fabric that's underneath it. And then I go over 1. And then I travel up again. And you're creating like little bars. To weave. Down and pull over 1. And so I want to kind of not only just cover the hole, but get a little bit on the sides too, so that it becomes part of the fabric. And then we go over, under, over, under. So now I have this thing going on with, there's about 3 strings going across it, and then we have these outside strings. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do this. This is just the best messy way because it's messy and it's cool, and it's messy and it's cool. I don't need any more justification than that. Now I'm gonna start doing, I'm gonna pop my needle back up in this corner. I'm gonna start doing that same over and under, but going the other way. So I'm gonna turn it to make it easier. I'm just gonna start making a weave going this way. So I'm doing that same over under, then go over a stitch. Now that I'm getting to these other threads, I'm gonna begin incorporating it. And what a weave is just alternating over, under, over, under. So I'll start by going under this thread, over this next line, under this next line, over this next line. And the lines are kind of hidden because they're going into the fabric, but just imagine if you could see the thread completely exposed. You want to start following that pattern, and because you're still on the fabric, it doesn't need to be perfect. But once you get over the hole, you want to create a true weave. Then on the next line, you do the opposite. Over this one, because the last, oh shit, no, that's wrong. It's okay if you do things wrong. It's my best thing. You want to go over this one and under this one, and you can see because the last one was over, now you're doing under, and so that's just how you check your work, is the string before the opposite of what you're doing now. You just want to make sure you're doing the opposite. The best thing is, if you mess up and you miss one, you can add in another thread and it'll just bring in some more color. So don't worry too much about it. And I'm going to just keep doing that same kind of weave pattern, practicing all the way until I start getting into this hole. And then, you know, I keep doing it, but I'm going to make the weave closer together. And you don't want to pull too tight, because remember, you don't want to bunch your fabric. Because there's so many threads, it's easy to bunch the fabric. Okay, so now I'm getting into this hole, and I'm just going to keep doing the same thing I've been doing. And I want to try and make each line close together on the hole so you create a weave. And the thing is, it's still, in my case, when I do it, it's going to be sparse. You're going to do it and you're going to think it's wrong, and then you're going to add in more threads and you're going to be like, oh man, that actually looks pretty cool. Okay, let me show you an example. So I just did the weave the wrong way. If you can tell, I did 2 strings in a row the same, because my brain messes up like that. That's okay. I can either go back now and go in between them, or I can go in with another string and add 1 or 3 stitches so that it evens out. And so as you go through it, you can adjust. I'm going to go back in between these guys and make sure I do opposite. And so what I do is I'll usually just keep doing this until this string runs out or gets close. So I could let this go, and then I could load up with another color. So I'm going to use this color. Loaded. And I could literally pop up anywhere. I could pop up anywhere on this little thing that I'm doing. There's not really a wrong. Like, this is the fun part about mending your own clothes, is it's messy and fun. And you learn every time you do it. But there's so many different ways to do it. So I'm going to pop up somewhere in this middle here, and I'm going to start adding mends. And so if I had done it correctly before, if the mends were correct, then I'll add 2 lines or even amounts of lines in between so that it maintains the flow of over under. Start weaving in, and this tail here is great because at the end I can reload it and pop it in the back and poke a hole, or I can add in another line or 2 if I need to. So look, I added in a line right there, and then I'm gonna go right next to it because if you see this line and this line are the same, so I'm going to go in between them. This little tail's in my way, so I'm going to keep moving him out. I can go up and see, okay, I want to add some more in this area, so then I do an up stitch like this, and then I start adding a weave in there. So we're starting to see how our weave is beginning to form. And I'm going to add in some more strings and I'll pop back. So as you can see, I've created a pretty good weave. And what you can do is squish the threads together and see if there's any gaps. As of right now, we don't really have very many gaps, but I'm still going to make it even tighter, and I'm going to add in this third hue color and I'm going to squeeze it in. So I'm just going to like kind of push them aside and then pop up and then add 2 lines in between, and then do that till I run out of this thread. Okay, so I added in a third color, and look, I'm pressing my thumb on the back and you can't see my skin, so it's a pretty tight weave. So what I'm going to do is load up these strings and pop them in the back and tie them. So I just lick them, load this edge, load it, and then just pop it in the back. I'm gonna take off this thing, flip it inside out. Oh, I had another needle in here. Oh God, needles everywhere. And I'm gonna tie like I did before. And of course you could tie some of these strings together. So I tied that and then I twim. And then you do it for all of them. Okay, I messed up. When I was tying it, I pulled it too tight, and see now how it's scrunchy? So I'm so glad I did this, because now I can show you what to do. Is untie this knot or cut it off that you just tied, that you accidentally pulled, and then pull out a few stitches to give you some more room to tie again. So this knot here, I pulled too tight, so I'm going to kind of pull it out, snap off the knot, keep track of this thread as best as I can, and I'm just gonna stretch this out and find that thread again and retie it. Okay, so actually, because the threads are woven so tight, I can't find the knot that I just cut, but see, now it's less tight, and if that end thread ever pops out again, I'll just retie it. And so what I could do is search for it and use this needle to undo some threads and get a longer tail string and retie it loose. But that's a good thing to keep in mind. Like, really check when you're tying your knots on the inside that you're not pulling it too tight, because then it'll shrink everything that you just worked on. This weaving technique is really applicable to so many things. And basically all weaving is, first of all, it's the nature of reality, but second of all, you create this backbone of straight up and down looms. It's a loom is what you weave on. And then alternating over, under, back and forth creates a fabric. It creates a weave. And then once you learn stuff like this, like we did on this shirt today, you can make things like this, where I just created a loom on this branch, and then I'm just alternating over, under, and you can see that's just what's going on here. And this is a really pretty crappy loom that I made, but just alternating makes this cool design. And so looms are just so applicable, and that's why I feel excited to teach you about it today in this darning episode. And there's just a bunch of cool things you can do with looms. You can make them on picture frames. Oh, look, it's so cute. Look at this little, like, custom messy patch that I have on this shirt. I actually love this. I hope today I showed you that you can messily create a weave with a messy loom and still get a pretty awesome fabric mend going on. And so don't get too caught up in the perfectionism. Just playing around, and you can create, as long as you continue this over under, you can create harmony with your mend. And basically these things that you see as mistakes or flaws in your clothes are really guiding you to just new levels of creativity, and that's what's going to make your wardrobe so unique to you and allow you to have a really deeply personal relationship with what you wear. Oh my gosh. So the next episode of this little series is transplanting, and I'm so excited to share that with you because it is such a fun project. All right, guys, I'll see you on the flip side.